venit la o nouă ediție a emisiunii Ziua se apropie. În minutele care urmează vă prezentăm al patrulea raport european de la Bruxelles din anul 2024 din seria de rapoarte lunare de acest fel. În ediția de astăzi, invitații Yossi Lempkowicz, Tomas Sandell și Bert-Jan Ruissen vorbesc despre viitoarele alegeri europarlamentare și despre relațiile Uniunii Europene cu Israelul în contextul actualului război dintre Israel și Hamas. Să-i urmărim!
In just a little more than 2 months from now, from 6th to 9th of June, European citizens will go to the poll to elect a new European Parliament, where we are today in Brussels. This election will also determine the composition of the new EU leadership, which is the new who will lead the European Parliament, who will lead the European Commission, the European Council, and as well who will become the new High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy for the next 5 years. With us today in the studio this month, we have MEP Bert-Jan Ruissen from the Netherlands, a member of the European Conservatives and Reformists Group, who is running for re-election,
sure.
Important to say, and Tomas Sandell, who has been following EU politics since 1994, and also specifically EU-Israel relations for more than 20 years. Tomas Sandell is founding director of European Coalition for Israel. My name is Yossi Lempkowicz from European Jewish Press and Europe-Israel Press Association, and this is European Report. I will start with you, Bert-Jan Ruissen, if I may. In this European Report, we discuss on a monthly basis issues related to Israel and the Jewish communities from an EU angle.
Yes.
You can look back at 5 years as a member of European Parliament. And when do you look back at these years? What has been some of the highlights of this period? And have there been some disappointments for you?
Yes, well, thank you very much for the invitation. And in response to your question, what are the highlights last 5 years for me? As you know, I'm a Christian politician. I was very happy to see that during this mandate we managed to get the issue of religious freedom on the agenda by resolutions, by creating events and so on. And we managed also to get the High Representative. He got a new mandate, so the mandate of the High Representative of Freedom of Religion was renewed. So I was very happy with that. When I'm trying to concentrate it more on, let's say, the relations with Israel, one of the highlights, in my opinion, was the relaunch of the Association Council in 2022 from the Parliament.
After 10 years.
It was suspended indeed for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
And we in the Parliament, we also from the delegation for the contact with Israel, we were very vocal on it. So we were very happy that in the end, indeed, the Council decided to restart again some meetings on the Association Council. That's for me one of the highlights when we are talking about relations with Israel. Another important highlight when we are talking about relations with Israel was the signing of the Abraham Accords. The EU didn't play, let's say, a very dominant position in that. It was more an initiative, I think, from the United States. But it creates in the Middle East a good basis for, let's say, normalization of the diplomatic context between Israel and different Arab countries. That were, I think, crucial highlights. Talking about disappointments. Yes, I'm on one specific issue really disappointed, and that relates to the issue of the Palestinian school books. We managed to get, let's say, enough support as European Parliament for a really strong resolution on the textbooks. And we asked, as Parliament or Commission, to stop, let's say, the funding of the Palestinian school books, because we saw, and that's still a reality, we saw a lot of anti-Semitism in the school books. And I'm really disappointed that we are still, when we're talking here, we are still, as EU, funding the Palestinian school books, and I don't see really concrete results in this respect.
But you mentioned also the new High Representative.
Yes.
For 5 years.
Yes.
What is your comment on the work regarding specifically Israel of the new EU chief, policy affairs chief? How did it? Was he effective in this policy, or was?
You're talking about the special envoy for the peace process.
Yes.
I was referring to the special envoy, yes, on freedom of religion of belief.
Yes.
But when we are talking about the special envoy for the Middle East peace process, well, we are not, well, to be honest, in my opinion, quite effective in that respect. It's good that we have a special envoy for the Middle East process, but we all realize how difficult the situation is now. When you see the war in Gaza, there's no really, in my opinion, no really perspective nowadays for concrete peace process. The situation is quite problematic and hard these days.
Tomas Sandell, as I mentioned in the introduction, you have been following EU politics for the last 30 years. And do you think that the European Parliament has changed during this period, and how?
Yes, Yossi, you may also have followed EU politics around the same number of years. And you will remember, you mentioned 30 years, so that would bring us back to 1994 when I moved to Brussels for the first time, and this building didn't exist. Yeah. So when you look at the skyline of Brussels, it was a very different Brussels, and the European Parliament was squeezed in what has been the Committee of Regions building for many years. Also,
there were less countries also.
Absolutely. And it symbolizes perhaps also the way that the Parliament was perceived at the time, not as a very important institution. It was often referred to as a talk shop. But this, of course, changed with the Maastricht Treaty in 1992 and later with the Lisbon Treaty in 2007 when the European Parliament got more clout. When the European Parliament became more involved and had more influence in policy making in foreign policy, and of course also in approving the budget. And in this respect, I refer back to Mr. Ruissen's observation about I think the Parliament did the right thing in putting pressure on the other EU institutions on making aid to the Palestinians conditional on respecting universal values, and especially in relation to the Palestinian textbooks. But in this respect, I would wish that the Parliament would have had more political clout in a way, because we know that at the end of the day, it didn't, the policies went very quickly back to the usual, very uncritical and unconditional support. But it's always fascinating, of course, to look back 30 years EU politics in general, and for the last 21 years to be exact, well, actually 23 EU and Israel relations, which I will comment on later in the program.
Sure. Bert-Jan Ruissen, you mentioned it regarding the European Parliament delegation for relations with Israel. You are the vice chairman of this delegation. So how would you rate this 5-year term for EU-Israel relations? And what are your thoughts as you come back? You just come back this summer for another 5 years, hopefully. In other words, how could EU-Israel relations be improved further? You mentioned the EU Association Council, which had not met for 10 years, and it's again meeting. But can we do better, even better, in terms of EU-Israel relations?
Yeah. I think the last 5 years we invested a lot. The delegation for the contacts with Israel, I think, was one of the most active delegations in the parliament. Our chairman is very active, so he played a really crucial role in that. So we invested a lot, and we saw that in the last years we strengthened our relations with Israel. We cooperate in different fields, in the field of innovation, in the field of trade, and so on. We also, indeed, what I told just now, what I already mentioned, is that we put a lot of pressure on the council to restart the meetings in the association council. We did a lot, but having said that, I have now personally the feeling that after the 7th of October, we are living in a complete other world. And that creates a lot of, let's say, let us put it in a diplomatic way, a lot of challenges. Also, when it comes to the relation between the EU and Israel. What happened on the 7th of October, the terrorist attacks from Hamas, the war in Gaza, the situation relating to the hostages. For me, it's crucial that we have to see that Israel is the only democracy in the region. And for me, it's crucial to underline that we have to support Israel in this difficult and this really hard times, in the fight against Hamas. And, well, I see a lot of discussions in the parliament. And there's a risk, let us put it in that way, there's a risk that Israel is becoming more and more in an isolated position. And it's really crucial that also after the elections, the pro-Israel coalition, let's hope that the pro-Israel coalition in the parliament will return stronger, because that's really crucial in order, well, to support Israel in the war against terrorism. And for me, it's clear we have to defeat Hamas when Hamas is still there, when Hamas is still active in Gaza. I don't see a perspective for peace. So that's for me a condition, I think.
So you say first defeat Hamas, free the hostages,
yes,
before anything other.
And then hopefully we can create a new environment where, let's say, talks about peace can become possible again.
Tomas Sandell, Bert-Jan Ruissen just spoke about the prospect for EU-Israel relations. You have followed these relations, as I said, since more than 20 years. How have things changed over this time period? And do you think that EU-Israel relations now are stronger than 20 years ago?
Yes, let me actually go back 50 years, because I think what we forgot to pay attention to last year was the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, which also in a way set the start for EU-Israeli relations. And sadly, EU relations to Israel were defined at the time under a huge pressure from the Arab states, with the oil weapon as EU basically taken hostage, which explains why EU positions on Israel always have been critical, let's put it this way. And I think for any student of international relations, it has always been clear that whereas the US have been seen as a friend of Israel, the Europeans or the European Union has been more pro-Palestinian. Compared over the last 20 years, I think one thing that I'd like to raise is the fact that the European Parliament delegation to Israel, which Bert-Jan co-chairs, or is the deputy chair, at the time when I came here and started to engage in these issues, the enemies of Israel, if you want to describe them as such, had a very effective way of neutralizing this important delegation by making sure they had a chair who did not sympathize with Israel. So he would not call together the delegation, and for this reason the delegation was completely passive for many, many years. And this changed quite dramatically, I would say, 10 years ago. And I think the last 5 years, exactly as Bert-Jan mentions, and credit should be given to the vice chair as well, to Bert-Jan Ruissen, for really making this delegation one of the most active in the whole European Parliament, where you have a cross-section of members of Parliament who really want to support Israel, want to stand with Israel. And this, for me, would be to say that, yes, there has been a development in a positive way. If I would mention some milestones like Bert-Jan did, obviously it's the restart of the Association Council in 2022, which in one way almost marked like a renaissance in EU-Israeli relations. We have to remember that the year after President Herzog spoke here in the European Parliament on the 27th of January. And I also think that the reactions immediately after October 7 were unprecedented. It was so clear that a huge majority at that time really wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel. And I think, as we said before in this program, that this is partly thanks to the strong leadership of the current president or chair of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and the president of this parliament, Roberta Metsola. And we'll speak about the elections later, but needless to say, it's so important that we can stay on track.
Bert-Jan Ruissen mentioned the fact that since October 7, things are changing. Do you agree with this?
Yeah,
in terms of a position of EU regarding Israel?
Well, there is, you know, again, the weeks, the months after October 7. Some people would go as far to say the days, because it didn't take long before the enemies of Israel were able to mobilize themselves. And I think at the moment it's almost at a tipping point. Something we knew would happen. It's human nature when there's been a long war, and we see the images from Gaza. Hamas knows this better than anyone else, that the more people that are killed in Gaza, the more the sympathies will tilt over to the Palestinian side. And I think these next weeks and months are really critical now, with the push from Spain and Ireland and Belgium to ask for an unconditional ceasefire and to really turn against Israel.
Bert-Jan Ruissen, let's speak about the EU elections themselves. which question do you think are the most important one as voters will choose their candidate, and which questions are the most important for yourself?
Well, these elections, the election on the 6th of June this year, these elections are crucial, very important, very important. For example, for relations from the EU with Israel. So it's really important that, let's say, the pro-Israel family in this house return stronger. So that's one of the crucial points, I think, at the elections. What is the position of the different candidates in relation to Israel? Another, I think, important issue at the elections is, what do you think about, let's say, the future of Europe? In which direction has EU to develop? Different groups here also in the Parliament let's try to create a kind of a superstate, giving more and more power to the EU. That is not the direction I prefer. I think we need a kind of cooperation at the EU level between member states, but in my opinion we have to limit the cooperation between member states to, I call it, cross-border issues like trade, like migration and so on. And that's, I think, also for voters a crucial element. But what kind of Europe do you like to see? Do you like to create a kind of a superstate? Would you like to see a Europe, a cooperation between member states just at cross-border issues?
Tomas Sandell, same question regarding the elections. This is, by the way, the 5th election cycle that you are following. So what do you think voters should know when they cast their votes? And how can they get the information, the right information, which makes them easier to vote and pick their candidate, which is the best way to do it, in your view?
Yeah. Well, before answering your question, let me say that regardless of the election results, ECI will return to the European Parliament also after June 9, and we plan on continuing with these European reports, which I also believe is a good way for the viewers to see what the debate is like in this chamber, but also to identify who are the real friends
for the general public.
For the general public, and I think those who have been watching, they have Bert-Jan's face is familiar by now, and I really want to commend not only Bert-Jan but the party, the Dutch Reformed Party, having monitored EU policy very closely for these last more than 20 years. The Dutch Reformed Party has been one of the most consistent and strongest allies to the Jewish people and to Israel. And I think this is important to know. What we decided already last year, because to answer your question, where do the candidates stand, where do the political parties stand on issues related to Israel, we decided to do a survey. So we hired a research institute here in Brussels to go through all the votes relevant for Israel, and based on them put together a ranking which they call European Parliament Israel Ranking 2023. And we will have a revised version that will be launched in 2 weeks' time. So in time for the next elections, people can go to our website, ec4i.org, and find out where does, say you vote in Finland, which is in my case, where do the Finnish parties, how do they line up when it comes to their voting records on Israel?
In all countries, in all member states.
In all member states, yes. Yeah. And also we have a separate ranking for the nation states, which you can basically say that New Europe tend to be more sympathetic towards Israel than what we would call Old Europe. And politically also there is a difference depending on ideology, on which side on the left-right divide you are. I won't give the answers in this program because I will just give a teaser that it's worthwhile waiting for this new ranking and then go to the website and find out for yourself. Because we, in this program as well, you know, we want to be, we are not biased or for any political party, but we want to create an open debate.
This brings us to an end of this month's program. I would like to thank both panelists, Bert-Jan Ruissen, candidate for the re-elections for the next parliament, and Tomas Sandell, ECI funding director. Thank you very much for being with us today. My name is Yossi Lempkowicz, and this is the European Report here from the European Parliament in Brussels. See you again next month.
Emisiunea Ziua se apropie, se încheie aici. Vă mulțumim pentru atenție și vă dăm o nouă întâlnire săptămâna viitoare la aceeași oră. Sunt Codruța Burghelea, vă spun la revedere și Dumnezeu să vă binecuvânteze!